In this episode, we delve into the chilling case of John Barry Simonis, infamously known as the Ski Mask Rapist. Between 1979 and 1981, Simonis terrorized communities across 12 states, committing as many as 130 assaults, ultimately receiving 21 life sentences. But if that's not enough, he was also sentenced to an additional 2,690 years behind bars. He started as a peeping Tom. Simonis escalated to home invasions, often assaulting victims in front of their partners. The crimes prompted the FBI Behavioral Science Unit's involvement due to concerns of potential murder. In this episode, we look at the insights from a former Gonzales police officer, Bill Landry, who actually identified the suspect's vehicle. And without his one job, maybe the dots would not have connected. I'm Kiran Chawla, and this is Louisiana Unfiltered. Welcome back, everybody. This week we are joined by the former Gonzales Police Chief, Bill Landry. Chief, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So we're going to get right to it. We are going to discuss a serial rapist. And I guess let me explain this to our viewers that we try really hard to find the unique cases. Of course, we do a little variety of everything from news recaps, but this one, in fact, I'll just read this real quick because this was in some of the stuff that I was reading to prepare. This man was sentenced to 21 life sentences, but then an additional 2,690 years behind bars, and officials have connected him to 130 attacks across the country.
Wow. I was really under the impression it was like more than 60. I knew it was a lot. The last rap sheet I had seen was 18 life sentences in 2,500 years.
So that's even
more than
you
what
thought.
I saw.
Well, let's start with, Chief, if you can kind of fill us in on what was your role back in, we'll start with the timeline, but before we get to that, tell us your involvement in this case.
Well, I was a uniform patrol supervisor in Gonzales with Gonzales Police Department, and just happened to be working that night when the call came of a sexual assault and rape in the city of Gonzales.
So let's start from the very beginning. We're talking about a man named John Simonis. I guess for our viewership, let's kind of talk through setting this up for them, that who was John Simonis?
Well, I didn't know much at the time. He was a serial rapist that traveled across Louisiana and the United States committing sexual assaults and rapes. And he actually was stalking. He found a home in Gonzales that he thought would have been a good target. And ultimately, he drove a red Trans Am. And ultimately, that night in Gonzales, which would have been on October the 29th, 1981, it's such a big case that I never forgot the date. He had parked his car in a shopping center next to a TGY Auto Center. And I was kind of in the market for a fancy car, and I stopped and saw the car parked. Looked at the inside, looked at the interior, knew what stereo system he had. It had a Texas tag on it, and I was going to run a license plate to check to see if the vehicle was stolen because it was parked in an odd place. Because of an emergency with the fire department, I never was able to call the plate in or even write it down. Ultimately, some hour or so later, we get a call of a rape. And when we arrived at the scene, we found out that the victim's car was ultimately stolen. one of the other patrol officers at some point found the victim's car, and where it was located would have been parked right on the side where the red Trans Am was parked.
So is that the moment when the Trans Am was connected to him?
Not at first. Yes and no. Back at the scene, Jim Churchman was one of the crime lab technicians, and I just happened to ask the question, did a red Trans Am have anything to do with this case or any other case? Because apparently there was some discussion of possible serial rapist, and his eyes really lit up, and that's when the first true information came that the red Trans Am was a suspect vehicle.
And you were telling me that even though you didn't really get the best of looks on the license plate, you kind of remembered a Z.
I knew the Z was the middle letter in the license plate, but I couldn't remember any other letter, and I couldn't remember any number. So at some point, Captain White with the state police at the time put me under hypnosis to see if we could recall the license plate number. And the only thing I was able to recall was that the letters were stick letters and not curved letters like a S or B or C. I just knew that everything was a stick letter.
Okay.
And license plate number today is VZH 949.
Wow.
Still remember it.
So I guess a little background. John Simonis, he grew up in Lake Charles, Louisiana. He's from a military family, so he moves to Ohio. But then he also ended up serving in the military. But let's back up. He graduates Bloom Carroll High School and graduated in 1969. In fact, he was described as being a popular boy in high school. He then goes on to serve in the Army in Europe in 1973 to 1977. But after all that, he comes right back to Louisiana.
Yeah, that's information I didn't know.
Yep. So he had worked as a lab technician, and he was an attendant in a cardiology unit. This is the thing I think that grabbed my attention, that he had an IQ of 128. This was a very smart man.
He was very smart, yes.
And one of the other things that I read was that he actually tried to go get help for himself. He tried to, in fact, here it is. I have to read this, that November 6th of 1981, Simonis nearly turned himself into a Mississippi psychiatric hospital. He said that, I drove up to the front gate. I wanted help so bad. I got to the front gate and stopped, backed up, and left. 2 days later, he committed another assault. Wow. So that just goes to prove that IQ of the 128, that he probably had knowledge of what he's doing.
He knew.
Is wrong. So he gets the name of the Ski Mask Rapist.
That's correct.
Why?
He had a skull cap with the holes cut out for the eyes, and it came down right past his nose. And he pulled that over his face. His mouth was exposed. But I've seen the mask he wore, and it was in evidence in Gonzales for years. I'm not sure whatever happened to the mask. But apparently he left it at the scene. But DNA wasn't an issue. I mean, nobody knew about DNA back in 1981. So those were evidence we couldn't trace.
Was it every time that he committed a rape he would leave it?
I don't know. I know in this case he did. This could have been his last rape.
So let's start with in his early years, he started as a peeping Tom. Correct?
Correct.
He started out as a peeping Tom, and in fact, he finally gets arrested for that, but the judge releases him and says, no jail time as long as you go get some psychiatric help. But that was just the beginning.
That was the beginning. The sexual gratification had to increase because peeping Toms wasn't satisfying him anymore.
Wow.
That's what I look at.
And then he started exposing himself, and then it just got worse and worse. And initially, from everything I've learned is that he initially started doing this to maybe get some money or steal or something, but eventually it became about torture.
He became more aggressive.
Yes.
In each case, and he was stealing jewelry from the victims, and we learned that he was bringing it to Texas to a jeweler and selling the stolen jewelry, where they would maybe take the diamonds out, melt down the gold, and resell.
So, Chief, in this case, this man had been scoping the home in Gonzales, correct?
That's correct.
Talk to us about that. How long had this been all going on?
He drove around just trying to find the right spot. He looked for a home that was secluded toward the end of a subdivision road, maybe toward a dead end, would have been surrounded with woods, and not any other home fairly close, although it was a subdivision. And at some point he figured he had the right home, and he parked his car away in a shopping center, which would have been less than a mile away, and walked, waited for dark to enter the home.
He actually, and I'm assuming all this is well after he was arrested, he said that, quote, "I stalked my victims like a hunter stalks deer. It sometimes took weeks to hone my target," but he didn't just randomly attack people.
He didn't actually stalk these victims as much as he stalked the home. And it just so happens that this home he stalked, 3 ladies had just got in from shopping. So the homeowner and 2 of the neighbors, and when he barged in, he had 3 victims instead of just 1.
And he raped all 3?
And he raped all 3.
So in all that I've researched is like he tied him up. He'd have a weapon on him, a knife or a gun. And initially it all started with him kind of raping the women. It was the sexual gratification.
That's correct.
But even that progressed.
It started showing more violence during the sexual act.
To the point that he was finding the husband, the father, some man figure, and tying them up.
Made them watch.
And made them watch.
Correct.
What a sick human being. I mean, everything he did was sick, but that. And then, from what I understand is, if he got there earlier and the father figure or the husband or whatnot wasn't there,
he would wait for him.
He would wait for them. He would tie up the woman and then wait for that person to get home and then wait to rape them.
Yep.
I mean, that's, they always say that criminals have a twisted mind and an IQ of 128 is what I said, or 120?
It's hard to navigate through a twisted mind.
Yeah. So take me back to the Gonzales case, the one that you did work. So these 3 women, they come in from grocery shopping and he's just waiting?
They were in the home and he walked in the back door that was unlocked, like a patio room. And
he's
produced
got
a weapon. I didn't remember whether it was a knife or a gun.
Okay.
A knife rings the bell for me.
Okay.
And I'm trying to remember who else was in the home, but I know there were 3 victims. And all 3 victims were sexually assaulted. I do know that when he left, he took the telephone receiver and put it in the freezer. Whether it was to hide it, and they wouldn't find it, and while we looked in the freezer, I don't know. But ultimately, we found the telephone receiver. And that was the old push-button telephones back then, landlines. Whether the freezer would freeze the devices so they wouldn't function, I don't know. But that's what he did, maybe to prevent them from calling. But ultimately, we got the call. And
do you remember that call?
I remember going to a home in the subdivision, and report of a sexual assault and rape. And to my surprise, when I got there, I didn't expect to find what I did find, that it was the magnitude of it.
What do you mean by that?
3 victims, 3 rape victims, the same home.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Violent, real violent. You know that you got somebody that's a sick person.
You're a young police officer at this time. What's going through your mind?
Uh-oh. You know, you got to figure out what's the next step. And that's just what we did. We knew this was probably a little more than we could handle at the time. We called in State Police Crime Lab to process the crime scene. And, you know, from there, when the crime technicians came in, and that's when we learned that this red Trans Am would have been significant in maybe some other cases also. So that's when the real evidence came about that the person we're looking for could be driving that red Trans Am and involved in a multitude of rapes.
What goes through your mind that you just saw this red Trans Am?
What went through my mind is that I didn't write the license plate number down. I called it in on the radio. And that's what got me more than anything, that I felt like I didn't do enough to prevent it at the time. But luck has it, we were able to find the vehicle. So after the initial investigation, and when we started with other agencies, the state developed a Ski Mask Rapist task force.
Okay.
So I was temporarily assigned to the state police detectives to work on the case with the other investigators.
Okay.
And during that time, you know, I knew it was a Texas tag. We knew it was a red Trans Am. We didn't know what year model it was, so me and another state police investigator, I think we wound up combing through probably 10 or 20,000 different red Trans Ams to see what matching license plate numbers and see what we could find out. And during that time, that was when a state trooper in Lake Charles spotted a vehicle that fit the description.
Okay.
And we drove to Lake Charles, and that's when a week of Thanksgiving, the Friday before Thanksgiving, we set up a surveillance, and we followed him for a whole week.
And you told us that, how long did it take you to get from Baton Rouge to Lake Charles?
We left Baton Rouge at 6 o'clock in the evening on a Friday evening, stopped for gas in Jennings, and the sign over the interstate when we entered Lake Charles was 7:20. So we made it to Lake Charles in an hour and 20 minutes.
That's how urgent it was to get there.
And that's how fast the driver was going.
Granted, you probably didn't sit on the new Mississippi River Bridge for about 45 minutes in nonstop traffic. So
Nothing. Nope.
It's a whole nother podcast. But, okay, so you guys get to, is it a gas station, or where exactly are you going in Lake Charles?
The car was spotted. We found the car in a parking lot behind the hotel, the Downtowner Hotel off of I-10, right in Lake Charles.
Okay.
So at some point, we got settled in some rooms, and I think at 2 o'clock in the morning, thereabouts, we snuck to the car, and I had a chance to look into the car and saw the whole radio system, the speakers that were in the door, and knew right off that was the car I saw in Gonzales. So we sat on him we called up assistants, state police narcotics guys showed up, and we had a 7-day surveillance on Simonis.
And what did he do this whole time?
He ate at the Piccadilly, went to the movies, just drove around. And I remember at one point we were behind him at a red light, and there were 7 unmarked police cars behind him. We had air surveillance. We had nicknames for streets, like Louisiana Avenue was State Street when we talk on the radio, because we didn't want scanners to pick up our locations and understand where we were.
Okay.
We had Lady Lane for another road. I can't remember what the main road real word was, but we had Lady Lane and State Street for Louisiana Avenue. So they had code words for everything, so people who had scanners wouldn't understand what we were talking about.
Wow. So did he ever pick up on y'all behind him or
He
surveilling?
never did. We had suspected that he had another home picked out. And the plan was if we felt that that was the home, we were going to get the people out of the home and send some agents in the home and wait for him to break in. And that's when we were going to take him down then. But during the surveillance, apparently some word got out that we was possibly had a suspect under surveillance, and the media was getting ready to expose us. So we had a warrant for his arrest, and we ultimately picked him up, got word from the command to go ahead and execute the warrant.
What was your original warrant for?
Rape?
Which, the Gonzales case?
Yes.
The one with the 3 victims?
That's correct.
So what, do you remember the charges?
No.
Okay.
Multiple charges, though. I do know that, but the exact charges I don't remember.
But you played a vital part in gluing this piece together.
I was the only policeman in Louisiana could identify the car.
What's that mean to you now when you look back?
Lucky.
That you may have stopped future
Yep.
rapes.
Yep. So I've been successful in law enforcement all my life, and I thought that was just another successful case. So here I am.
And now, all these years later, so he's sitting in Angola, correct?
Yes, he is.
He's serving 21 life sentences plus an additional 2,690 years.
That's correct.
But he wasn't limited to just attacks here in Louisiana.
No, actually, there was probably still not on him, but he did have a detainer on him for Texas that they were able to prove that he did. There was another guy that was convicted, wrongfully convicted of a rape that Simonis was able to clear up for the district attorney and investigator and help free a man who had been locked up for 2 years.
So he spoke.
He did.
Did you ever get to talk to him?
I never spoke with him.
Any of your colleagues did?
Yes.
Did you guys ever converse about, hey, what those conversations were?
At that point, no, I didn't. Once the arrest was made, state police really took over. So it might just to get back home and get back to business as usual. So when Simonis only confided in one person, it was, you really don't interfere or try to come in. You just let that one guy that he trusts do the work. And that's what he did.
And he spoke.
And he spoke.
I mean, a lot of what I was even reading, those are his direct quotes. But this man was very calculated in all he did. In fact, when he was tying up some of these women, he had pre-cut.
He did.
Duct tape.
He had a bag that he carried. So, I mean, those items were in the bag.
How do you take pre-cut duct tape? Every time I cut a piece of tape, it gets stuck to itself.
He knew what to do. Unless he had it back to back and he tied them as a knot rather than tape, I don't know.
Where do you rank this case in your career?
One of the top 3. There was 3 cases. I had a serial murder case. I had the serial rapist case. And I had the New St. John church shooting. That was probably my 3 top cases over my career.
He gets arrested on November the 27th of 1981. Thanks to you and the task force, pretty much. They jailed him and put a $4 million bond.
Yes.
Okay, now when I hear $4 million bond, that's pretty significant for now.
$4 million in 1981 was tremendous.
Yes.
Massive.
That's huge.
Yes.
So, I mean, the bond alone kind of lets you know, okay, this is not someone we're playing with. But at that very time, he's charged with 3 counts of aggravated rape, the one like you said,
Yes.
4 counts of armed robbery, and 1 count of aggravated burglary. he ended up serving, or the first sentence was 231 years with no chance of parole. That's a life sentence right there. More than one. Plenty of life sentences, depending on how long you're going to go. But then after he's locked up, after this is when they were able to start gluing together pieces to where he started talking, and two, they were gluing together a total of, and I say total, we don't know if it's 130 across the country. For all we know, it could be double that, and he just never admitted to some of these.
Well, you see, my first thoughts were it's at least 60, and now it's doubled. So there's no telling how many crimes he committed.
I'm just baffled at the thought process of a human being to operate like this. And then the torture, like he got off on torturing not just the woman, because the woman, rape is one of the most intimate crimes that you can commit.
Well, the satisfaction with him was in the pain it caused and not so much as the act.
Yes. But then it wasn't just satisfaction. I mean, it wasn't just causing her, the woman he's raping. It was that
the humiliation he caused to even the other victims that were witnesses.
And in some cases, it was more than just the husband. It was also a child.
Yes.
Correct?
That's correct.
Now, did you have other cases where there were instances where it was multiple people tied up or him? I can't.
Usually it's a one-on-one, but this was an audience. He wanted an audience. And that was the thrill for him.
Sick.
Yes.
Let's kind of transition. This was 40 plus years ago, 44 years ago now.
44.
Talk to me about how different it was being a police officer back then compared to now. Now, if we come across a Trans Am, I say we, law enforcement comes across a Trans Am and they're thinking, hey, I think this may have been it, but I didn't catch a license plate. But with the help of computers, I would assume you don't have to physically go through everything. Whereas back 40 years ago, you and one other person went through 10 to 20,000 different Trans Ams.
That's correct.
Break down the difference, what you did then and what you would be able to do now.
Wow. You could almost put an inquiry in a system right now to give me all the license plate numbers. Give me all the Texas license plate numbers that have a Z in it. That's either a Pontiac or Trans Am or Firebird, because we just didn't limit it to Trans Am. We had Firebird in there also because of the style. But it was really hard then, and it was stacks of computer printouts. And if you could narrow it down now in a matter of an hour, you could probably have the information you're looking for now.
And how long did it take you back then?
Oh, it took us. Well, we never did clear it up through the documents. The vehicle was spotted before we could even finally go through all the vehicles.
Wow. So how long had y'all been going through documents?
Several days, 2 or 3 days at least.
The advancement of technology. But then even the DNA didn't really come about till...
We didn't know what DNA was.
No.
DNA
didn't really come about till the early 2000s.
It was black fingerprint dust on white items and white fingerprint dust on dark items. And it was latent dust and fingerprints. And you gather your evidence and tag it. So you wasn't swabbing for DNA. It didn't exist.
But how reliable were fingerprints back then? The dusting.
If you had some good ones, it was very reliable. If you could get some good latent prints. And it was only as good as unless your suspect didn't have fingerprints on file, then it was no good until you had a suspect.
Which now, I mean, more people, you go get a concealed carry,
yep.
Your fingerprints are in the system, even though you're not a suspect, but you have to legally.
So when you go TWIC card,
yes.
When you apply for a bus driver, a student aid worker, so anytime you go to a different position that requires a background, you get another set of fingerprints done. So everything's electronic now. It used to be that you would be ink rolled, but now you go AFIS and they automatically read it with no errors. So it's a lot different. Back then it was just black ink.
I'm interested to know that from a police officer's perspective, when you sit back and look at the technology that we have now compared to what you used in the 70s and 80s. Talk to us about that.
We had good police work. I thought police work was much better because you were using your mind more than you were using electronics. So you always tried to outsmart the bad guy, and it was just talking to him and just getting real with him, So you really had to outsmart him and outwit him, and it was always a game. Sometimes we won, sometimes we lost, and that's what I would never ask a guy, did he commit a crime? I would always ask him why he did it. So that was the trick to my question. So he could lie about why, but he couldn't lie about not doing it. And so when you just use trick questions and learn how to just ask those type of questions, then you really went up on him.
Do you look back now and the technology that we have, was there a time when you used to say, I know in journalism, we used to, after you finish an interview, you have to go back and listen to it. And then back in the day, we would literally write down, or eventually we were able to type out, okay, this is what they said. Now all that stuff can be transcribed with the click of a button.
Everything back then was handwritten. There was no computers, not even a tape recorder. So you just, everything was just a handwritten report. And we did it. How? And we were successful. And now I think because we rely too much on the little electronic devices, we lose the street smarts. And those in the streets are outsmarting us. So it's getting back to being a good smart street cop. That's where it is. That's where the success is. Your best enforcement would be traffic, because with traffic, you learn all kind of things. And that's how you start. To reduce crime, you do traffic enforcement, and that's where you start reducing your crime.
Interesting.
Yep.
Let me go back to the Ski Mask Rapist. When y'all caught up with him that November day, November 27th, 1981, when you saw this man, what went through you?
Finally, I have a body I have a name I can put on a body. And so their plan was, when he was arrested, because I was sitting at Troop D in Lake Charles listening on the radio. One of the agents was on the telephone to Colonel Garrison in Baton Rouge to let him know the play-by-play. They were following to a convenience store. He walked out with a loaf of bread in each hand and a pack of cigarettes maybe, and they took him into custody and brought him straight into the troop and started the process. And trooper that was one of the arresting officers was the one he really trusted in. So that's where it all started, by trusting the investigator.
Did he fight his arrest?
Nope.
It's almost like he was playing a game with you guys, and he knew.
Somebody was on the phone joking with the colonel at the time and telling the colonel, "Oh no, Colonel, wait, he's running. We in pursuit." And they were just joking with the colonel, but the colonel wasn't happy about that at all. But,
well, I bet.
No, but they had him. He didn't resist, didn't offer any resistance. Took him right into custody, brought him in the car right to Troop D. And the rest is history.
So if this man was born in the early 50s, by our math, we're looking at a man in his about 75-ish?
No, he is 73 years old right now.
Yeah.
No, 74.
Exactly.
Yep. He was a young man back then.
And he has
it's hard
spent
to believe he's 74 years old now.
He spent majority of his life at Angola.
That's correct.
If he was locked up in 1981.
He's been locked up for 44 years.
Wow. And serving life.
Now, what was interesting about the case also in Lake Charles was he was friends with a Lake Charles police officer.
Okay.
So we brought the Lake Charles police officer in and questioned them and threatened him with serious arrest if they interfered or leaked the information that we had him under surveillance, and questioned him about, it was a female officer, and questioned her if she knew anything about his activities, but she didn't know anything about his crimes. She was a friend of his, but she didn't know anything else. And I thought she was being honest when we talked to her, and they just threatened her with arrest, and she kept quiet.
Wow. I'm honestly left speechless. This is, I mean, when you say in your career this is one of your top 3, you lived it.
I did.
You worked it. I'm simply reading about it or now being able to sit down and interview you, and I can't imagine. I remember the Derek Todd Lee case, and that was a serial killer. Rape. Yeah, you're not killing them, but you pretty much are.
I can take you back to the exact same spot today where the car was parked. That's how clear it is in my mind.
Well, let's go back, though, that had you not stopped and looked at that Trans Am, and the only reason you did that is in that moment, you weren't being an officer.
It caught my attention because I was kind of car shopping, and it was a fancy red Trans Am. So I want to stop and take a look at it. Had I not said anything to the crime lab tech that night, there's no telling how many more incidents may have happened. But that was the night that, because in a prior case, there was a young girl who saw a red Trans Am cruising the subdivision before the incident occurred. So the talk of a red Trans Am had come up prior, but we didn't know it. But the crime lab tech knew of it. And that's where the association came that, we got.
But you, at this point, when you went and looked at it, you said you never called it in.
Nope.
And so where was the connection made between you and somebody at state police knowing about this red Trans Am? When it was spotted, eventually?
Because at some point, when we found the victim's car, where it was parked, it would have been on side the red Trans Am.
Okay.
So I made a comment to the tech that we got to go process the stolen vehicle, and where to found the car, there was a red Trans Am. I said the red Trans Am was parked right here, but it's gone now. And then that's when he perked up. And you saw a red Trans Am? Yes, I did.
And that's where the
association for the red Trans Am came in, connecting to other crimes.
But without this red Trans Am, was John Simonis on anybody's radar?
No.
Like, nobody knew who this serial rapist was?
No.
So who's to say how many more he could have been doing?
No telling. And there's no telling, well, October so there was 30 days, almost 30 days before we even picked up a surveillance. So I don't know if there was anything happen after the Gonzales incident or not.
That if he took a break or something.
That he took a break. But it could have been another one. But
well, according to him, on November the 6th of 1981, he tried to go check himself into the Mississippi Psychiatric Unit. Pulled up, but then drove off, and it says, by his own account, that 2 days later, he committed another rape.
And I don't know where that was.
Nope. So that would have been November the 8th, and then shortly after, the week of Thanksgiving is when...
I understand he had a heck of a memory, because there was a person who was convicted of a rape in another state. And through the interviews, state police realized that the wrong man was locked up. So they contacted the district attorney and the investigator of the agency. The district attorney had 3 questions he wanted to ask Simonis. The first question was, how did you enter the home? The second question was there anything happened inside the home that you remember? And then the third thing was, did you take anything when you left? And he answered all three questions correctly. That the third question he asked what he took was the teenage girl's driver's license, as he wanted it as a memento or a trophy. And that's when the district attorney and the investigator said, holy crap, we got the wrong person in jail, that who had been locked up for 2 years.
But did John Simonis know he was clearing somebody?
Yes.
Okay. And so he accepted it.
Yeah.
It was almost kind of one of those, like, what's the word? He was like a proud moment,
Yes.
It sounds like. Like he was proud that he did this.
No, that guy's treading on my crimes. I need to free him. That's my crime I committed. I don't want nobody else to get credit for it. That's probably the way he was thinking.
Just a sick thought process. Well, Chief, anything else that you recall about this case or anything else you want the public to know about
Case of a lifetime.
Seriously?
Yes.
The Ski Mask Rapist.
Ski Mask Rapist.
Wow. And this happened. You know, we always talk about in the news world that it's so weird how Louisiana somehow ends up having some kind of connection to every big national story. And then we breed these people, that serial rapists, serial killers. There was a time we had 3 serial killers operating at the exact same time.
I would have never thought in my career, just riding around as a patrol supervisor in Gonzales, who had a population back then of probably 7,000 people, that we would come to be able to clear up a crime that was nationwide. And it did happen.
All thanks to you. All because you were intrigued in a red Trans Am.
That's it.
Wow. Awesome work to you. Thank you for that case, but more importantly, thank you for all you have been doing in your law enforcement career.
Pleasure.
Yep. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Chief Landry. To our listeners, we appreciate you listening, and as always, we will see you on the next episode of Louisiana Unfiltered.